If you can buy smart as you can, and as often as you can really maximize your return. Because the one commodity we don't have, that we can't get any more of, is time. Because we only have a finite amount of time, right? So you walk in a store, you go to a estate sale, you go to a yard sale, and you're going to be there some period of time. If you don't come in with some sort of game plan and some sort of knowledge to start with, you literally are going to be looking up every single item that's there. You're going to spend 95% of which is not even going to be worth your time to look up, which you could have figured out before you went there.
What is happening, everybody, on YouTube and on iTunes? Welcome back to episode number 24 of the Raiken Profit Show. Today we have my main man, Jason Sloan, a.k.a. the Master of the Disaster, Prof Sales on YouTube. The Master of the Disaster, I don't know what that means, but it's good. What's going on, my man? How are you?
I'm doing awesome, Steve. Good to see you, my friend.
I've been drinking too much coffee, man, so
Never.
I'm going to take a deep breath. But in today's video, we're going to be talking about how to take your eBay business to the next level. And, you know, if you're brand new, you've never sold on eBay, and or if you're maybe kind of struggling or you want to make more money, this show is going to be perfect for you. So let's kind of build some context around this show. Jason, what's your story for the people out there who don't know you? Maybe they don't watch your YouTube channel. If not, follow them, Prof Sales. What's your story when it comes to selling on eBay? How'd you get started and where are you now?
Sure. Long story short, I used to be in retail management many years ago, a big box retailer as well as a clothing company, Gap, and I learned a lot about selling clothing. And when I actually got hurt on a job a few years back, and when I was out, I started thinking about ways to make more income and so on. And I thought, well, maybe I can sell clothing on. And I had sold on eBay before, here and there, dabbled in it. But decided to go all in, basically, because it just made a lot more sense than to try to piecemeal it. And I guess that was about 3 years ago that all really started going more full time and so on. And I haven't looked back since. And it's been a great ride. And, man, it just gets better every year. So here I am.
So when you first got started, were you watching YouTube videos? Like, how did you hear about it? And then how did you actually take that plunge into it? Because I know there's so many people who, it's kind of sad to say, but there's so many people who watch my channel and even other channels, and they watch passively and they take it all in, and they're saying to themselves, I'm going to get started when this happens, when that happens, and they never actually jump in. So what's your story in terms of like actually having that faith in yourself and the belief to jump in and actually make it happen?
That's a great question. And I think for me, I always love the challenge of something new. I love trying to figure it out. I love numbers. I love spreadsheets. I love business. I love the math behind everything and the probability of this happening or that happening. So I started applying all those skills and desires to reselling and selling. Specifically, clothing is something I settled on. I started watching some guy named Steve Raiken at some point, and he had some influence on me. He's a guy. But in all seriousness, though, your video as well as some others really influential because I saw, wow, there's a market for this. There's people who are able to scale this. Obviously, you needed to scale to a certain level. I wasn't interested in selling, one shirt every 2 months. And, I realized that it could be done. And I thought, I'm going to figure this out. Other people are doing it to some level. I didn't put a limit on it and say, I want to get to only this level, or I think I can only go to here. I said, you know what? I'm just going to play this out and see where it takes me.
Do you still remember that first sale that you had, or maybe that first month? Because, those are times that are really, really important.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I don't really sell a lot of T-shirts these days, he'll kill me if I don't tell him. Karen's son Ben found a shirt for me that was a Laney High School. Do you know the meaning of Laney High School? Who went to Laney High School? I don't know if you know or not.
Why don't you tell everybody?
You wouldn't know. It was Michael Jordan's high school.
Really?
Yeah, and there was a shirt made back in the day that, represented, it was a mass-produced shirt. So it was nothing super, super special, but it hasn't been out for a while, I don't think. And about his high school, and it had some sort of reference to him on it. And that was actually the first thing I sold. It wasn't necessarily the first thing I sourced. But when I got into this full time, that was the first thing I sold. And I remember that moment when I logged on and saw the sale, and I was like, yes! And then it was kind of like, now what? How do I ship it? Wait, I need to think about this. Like, what do I do? Oh, well, how much does it weigh? So I started going through all that. I kind of thought about those things, but, it was like, printing out a shipping label and taping it onto a bag. And I was a total noob about so many things when I started with that, but I figured it out fairly quickly, but it was exciting.
So what did you end up paying for that Laney High School, Michael Jordan school, that T-shirt, and what did it sell for?
Yeah, I believe I paid $2.99 for that one, plus some tax, so probably like about $3.25 or so. And I want to say it sold for like $16, $17, nothing crazy, but and plus shipping, because I was only charging shipping, so maybe $20 or so, because I knew nothing about pricing it. I knew that it would. I looked it up on eBay in the store, and I went, oh, Michael Jordan's high school. But then I thought, but I think some big company produces, so it wasn't like super special. But it was just cool to, Michael Jordan's my favorite basketball player of all time as well. So I grew up in the Michael Jordan era for sure. So it was kind of a double bonus there that it was his shirt.
So, one of the biggest problems people have when it comes to scaling their eBay business, and you had mentioned it before, is, you've got to be able to find enough products, enough inventory. And I've made a lot of videos about this in the past. And in my story, when I first got started, I was dealing with bicycles. And when winter hit over here in Connecticut, there's a bunch of snow out, nobody's buying bicycles. So I had to find products that I could resell. I was reselling those on Craigslist, but when I got to eBay, I couldn't sell bikes. I couldn't find any. Clothing, one of the great things about clothing is it's abundant. It's everywhere. What are some other reasons why you would recommend clothing to someone who's just getting started, or maybe someone who wants to continue scaling their business? Obviously, one of the benefits of clothing is abundant. You can find it everywhere. What are some other benefits to clothing and, scaling your business with clothing?
It's a good question. I think to your point, obviously it is abundant. I live in an area of the country too, and I think a lot of areas of the country are like this, where it's cheap. It's relatively cheap. Combining that abundance with the cheap price of it, you have a lot of selection to go through. That's a plus and a minus at the same time, because it can be a little overwhelming. But I would also say, I would dare think most people have experience with it. You wear it. You've bought it before. You've given it away. You know something maybe about how it fits. So you've got all this knowledge. And if you worked in retail like I did, especially clothing retail, and a lot of people do. I mean, retail is the biggest sector of employment in the country. And there's a chance you've worked for a clothing retailer or somebody who sells clothes at some point. You may have some other experience with it. You've washed clothing, you dry clothing, taken care of it. So I just think for all those reasons, it's a great place to start. You can get, $100 worth of pre-owned clothing, get you off and running in no time. Whereas in other categories, if you wanted to flip, say, iPhones, $100 is not going to go very far. So I think for all those reasons, cost of entry, availability, the price, and just your ability to, your knowledge of it, I think those are all great reasons to start with clothing.
I think it's really easy to store and ship as well. It's not going to typically break when you're shipping. A lot of times if you're dealing with, it could even be like nylon tennis shorts or T-shirts or even dress shirts, even some sweaters, right? A cashmere sweater. Sometimes if it's really light, you can send that first class for, less than $4. It's easy to ship. So yeah, I definitely think, clothing is an awesome option. Are there any other options in terms of inventory categories that you would recommend to people who are looking to find more products and scale their eBay business?
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, games has been video games especially, has been a great way to get started. Some of the same reasons you just mentioned. They're easy to store and ship. And you probably either have knowledge of them, or maybe you have children and that they have some knowledge of them. You have some experience with them. I think games are great too. You can pick them up cheap in a lot of cases and find them at yard sales and state sales and even thrift stores sometimes fairly reasonable. CDs, movies, things like that you can get in bulk and store easily and ship cheaply. A lot of times DVDs, I think, can be shipped with media mail, I believe, but don't quote me on that. But I mean, they're cheap to ship, even if they're first class. They don't weigh much. So I think things like that you can buy in some bulk and get started, kind of get your feet under you. And plus, I just don't like to risk a lot up front. It's great if you could find $100 items that'll sell for $300, but it's $100 items. So to get tens of $1,000, and that's a lot for a lot of people to start out. Most people aren't going to start out at that level, and plus there's a lot more risk with a higher priced item that somebody's going to get it, not like it, it's broken, it's damaged. They might try to scam you on the purchase, whatever, all those reasons and more. So I think, any of those categories is good to start out with.
Even shoes. I don't know if you mentioned shoes, but shoes are definitely a great item. Right. And, books, I would say, is going to be a better option for Amazon. But if you go into any thrift store, what are you going to see mostly? You're going to see a lot of DVDs. You're going to see a lot of books. You're going to see a lot of clothing, ties, shoes. So there really is, my advice is, go out to these thrift stores, garage sales, flea markets, start to look around, start to look things up on the sold listings. There is so many opportunities. Really, the opportunities end where your education ends. So right. Continue to educate yourself. We have a free guide. It's called 100 Amazing Items to Resell. It's the first link in the description. It's free. Download it. That'll give you 100 ideas. And then take each idea. Like, for example, Jason, when you got into first selling jeans, I'm sure you maybe knew maybe a couple profitable pairs. And then what did you do? You went into the sold listings. Mm-hmm. You studied it. When you're starting to learn about a specific item and maybe you want to find more of it, maybe like for me, like glassware, it's something I'm not really sure about. If you find something new, how do you educate yourself in terms of learning more about it so you can find more profitable items to scale in the future?
Yeah, I think a lot of your education should be done at home when you're not sourcing, because it's when you've got time. You're not swayed in the moment sometimes by, the passions of the moment. If you think it's a great deal, or you're at a estate sale and you think somebody else is eyeballing it, or a yard sale, And I think, doing that research when you're away from the product is great. I like to go in and look at a category. I've talked about this on my channel a few times as well. Going and look at a category and saying, all right, I'm going to research this category, maybe even this subcategory of this category. I'm going to look at, like, how big is it? How many listings are there? How many completeds have there been? How many of those sold? So that gives me an idea how much it's selling through. And kind of like the selling price, too, and looking at, all right, there's 80 solds, and 10 of them sold in sort of this range, and 25 of them sold in this range, and so on. So you start getting a feel for it, and I think that's something you're always developing. What you can do when you're not in the moment, I think, is more valuable than always being out, trying to pick up an item and going through one-offs. I mean, you can certainly do that and research them in the moment, but it's very time-consuming. I think it's better if you have a plan when you come in to hit a niche or a category, and already have some knowledge of it before you even see the items to start with. So you'll be more efficient, I think.
Right, and plus there's so much going on, especially at like a Savers or a Goodwill. There's so much going on. If you're not prepared in advance, it's very easy to look things over, right? I've looked over so many things, and then I've maybe watched a haul video on YouTube or somebody sharing their sold items, and I'm like, wait, I passed that item up. Like, it's happened with video games and different things. And yeah, I mean, the money is made a lot of times in that initial research at home. So that's definitely a great tip. When it comes to scaling an eBay business, I'm going to list off a couple things, and I want you to tell me, Jason, in your opinion, what you believe to be one of the most important things, okay, to scaling. Product research at home, sourcing, listing, photography, keywords, marketing, and running sales. If you have to pick maybe one or two, what really stands out to you when you think of somebody scaling their business?
I think it goes back to product resourcing and sourcing, or product research and sourcing, because the other things are things you do after you've already acquired the product. And to me, if you want to scale your eBay business, it's just like real estate. You make money in real estate when you buy, not when you sell. And I think you make money in reselling when you buy as well, because if you can buy smart as you can, and as often as you can really maximize your return. Because the one commodity we don't have, that we can't get any more of, is time, because we only have a finite amount of time, right? So you walk in a store, you go to a estate sale, you go to a yard sale, and you're going to be there some period of time. If you don't come in with some sort of game plan and some sort of knowledge to start with, you literally are going to be looking up every single item that's there. You're going to spend 95% of which is not even going to be worth your time to look up, which you could have figured out before you went there.
True.
Because think if you went to 10 estate sales and you looked up every item at every sale. I mean, you would be there for hours. And I just don't think it'd be profitable. So if you can have the knowledge up here and the sourcing that you can be so efficient when you go to a sourcing opportunity. And I think that's what people miss. Like, I know people, you hate to walk by money, quote unquote, but it's going to happen. You are going to walk by something that's profitable because you can't know everything. You can't look up everything. There's just not enough time. Time is the big variable that always holds us back a little bit.
One common thing that I've noticed amongst resellers is a lot of them have a gigantic death pile. A lot. I've visited a lot of people's houses, friends of mine. It's happened to me. Something I've struggled with. You know, it's almost like a high. It's a rush going to the thrift store, going to the garage sale, finding everything, sourcing it. Even for someone like me with my personality type, I enjoy planning and researching. But a death pile, someone out there, they're probably thinking, Steve, what is a death pile? Jason, first of all, what is a death pile? And once you define it, how can people deal with this problem of just being on the high and then you come down and now it's like, okay, now I have to list?
We actually came up with a video about this a few months ago and addressed this very issue. And this was the definition I gave to the people on my channel. If you have 100 listings and you have 20% of that many items or more that are unlisted, you have a death pile. So if you have 1,000 listings, it'd be 200. And that's just a rough rule of thumb. And my first thought is, first, stop buying. Don't buy another thing. Nothing. I don't care how great a deal it is. The second rule is, and I talked about this today actually, I like to take this mindset. If you, the thrill of the hunt is what drives a lot of resellers, the thrill of finding a quote-unquote good item. Question. If you would buy that item if you were not a reseller, you're not approaching your business correctly. If you would go into a store and buy something, even if you weren't going to sell it to flip it, even if it's a great deal, you're not thinking about this as a reseller. You're thinking about this as a shopper. You're not shopping, you're sourcing. Your inventory is not something to become emotional about. It's something that's a means to an end. And I like to think about it in terms of, I'm going to go in and find great items that I can sell, that I can list in the shortest amount of time possible, sell in the shortest amount of time possible for the most profit possible. Now, that doesn't mean the most profit or the quickest sale or the longest sale necessarily. There's a lot of variables that go into that, but that's kind of my goal. So when I think about, anything that I'm going to buy is that way. And if I have a death pile, that means I either bought a bunch of items that I had no intention of listing, I thought were going to be good deals, but really weren't good deals. I usually don't buy anything for myself anyway, so it's not really an issue for me. But I know it is for some people. They're like, oh, that's a great deal. I could wear that if I don't list it. I'm like, that's wrong. Like, you're starting from the wrong place when you say that to yourself. You're shopping. You're not sourcing. When you're there, you're sourcing. You're not shopping. So you have to have that mindset when you go in. And I think my 20% rule, when I did that video, a lot of people really appreciated that. And I had a few people that reached out to me and said, hey, you know what? I went and looked, and I had more than 20% of my listings unlisted, sitting in a pile, whatever, and I just stopped. And because I know there's this fear of missing out that people have, they think I'll miss a good deal at a store or a sale or whatever if I don't keep buying things. And you know what? You will. You will miss some good things. But you already bought good things, and they're sitting right there in your living room. So you have to deal with those first. And I think the 20% rule is just a quick, easy tip. And it gives somebody something tangible they can look at and say, oh, that's too many. Sorry, there's a long answer.
Those are some golden – no, man, those are some golden nuggets, man. Shopping versus sourcing, the 20% rule. I want to dig a little deeper into that because I think it's really easy, Jason, to say, okay, you've got 20% of your items unlisted. You have to stop. There's an issue. There's a death pile that's becoming created. I think it's really easy for people to understand that they've lost control a bit and they're not listing as much as they need to, because that's a key aspect of scaling your business is listing more items, because the more items you have, available, the more opportunities you have to sell something, and then the more opportunities you have to sell something, the more money you can make. Myself personally, I struggle with this, this was about 3 years ago. And to be 100% honest, I think I still do struggle with this to a point because it's really hard to pass up a good deal. For someone who's new, 6 months or around the 6-month mark or sooner, this is really, really important. How do you okay, I understand I have an issue. I have to stop buying, but I can't stop going to the thrift stores. I'm addicted. I have a close friend, Jason, one of my best friends, and he tells me all the time, I have too much inventory. And I mean, his house is a mess. It is an absolute mess. So much inventory. He probably has, I think he has maybe 800 items listed. He might have 800 unlisted. I swear to you. And he knows he has a problem, but he cannot stop buying. He can't. He is just addicted to it. What advice would you give to my friend or anyone else out there dealing with something similar? Because I think a lot of people are facing this.
Yeah. Well, I'm not a psychologist.
I got deep and dark right there, man. I got really deep.
But I think we all seek things that we think will bring us enjoyment and pleasure and so on. And for some people, that's buying things. I had a customer when I was in retail management. She would come in and spend $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 every month in our store, and her husband would come back and return it. And she actually had a compulsive issue. And, we couldn't really turn her down, but we knew it was all coming back. It was just crazy. She's buying kids' clothes. She didn't even have kids. Yeah. And I don't know the issues that everybody has inside them, and whether or not that is a specific issue. But I tend to think that there's something underlying there for a lot of people when it gets to a certain point. And again, I'm not some professional, so I don't want to say that it's this or that because I just don't know. Because to me, if you were in the business of, say, flipping cars, your car budget would be limited because it'd be very expensive. It's very expensive to flip cars. You got to invest a lot of money into them. So there's a natural barrier there, and you got to find what that barrier is for you. And it may even take somebody stepping in and saying, "Hey, this is out of control, and you have to rein this in because this is not good for you, even as a person, much less as a reseller. It's terrible for your business. You're over assorted. You have too much inventory. If you were a large business and did that, you'd be out of business." I think it's a realization that there might be something underlying there if it gets to that point. I wish it was like a simple answer and say, just stop buying. But for some people, that's not enough. And it might even require somebody to kind of step in and take some action when it gets to that certain point because it could be something a little bit more serious underlying there.
Cool. Awesome answer. Jason, when it comes to sourcing, we talked about sourcing being obviously very important when it comes to scaling. How were you able to scale your business through sourcing? Were there any strategies that you practiced to be able to visit more stores or to be able to find more products?
Yeah, a few things. We fortunately live in a good clothing area, and we have large metropolitan area we're near and a couple other smaller metropolitan areas. And going through the thrift stores and so on that we have in our area, we started learning when they had certain sales and certain deals. There's one area about an hour from us that has all their clearance goes down to $1. It's at Goodwill's, and they on a certain day of the week. And so it's worth our time to go there and hit 10, 12 stores in the same day. It's like, hey, we're going to plan a trip. We're going to get up early. We're going to get there, knock out 8, 9 stores, 10 stores, whatever we can do, and then come back. But I wouldn't go there every day. Because it's not worth the extra time and travel to go there. The other thing we did too is, so it's almost like you're buying in bulk when you do that. And I feel like having a sourcing schedule is really valuable. We're not quite as good about that right now. Not that we're all over the place. It's just we do it a little bit differently now. But saying, all right, on Tuesdays and Fridays or whatever your day is, or maybe it's one day, maybe it's two, that's going to be our sourcing days because of this. There's these sales or these opportunities. We've used things like the yard sale treasure map app, which allows you to plan out yard sales around you when it's yard sale season. It seems like it's always yard sale season now, year round anymore. Or state sales, what have you. Planning a route, because I live in a big metropolitan area that's spread out. And if I said, I'm going to go hit the 18 or 20, say, just Goodwills around here, I calculated one day, I drove like 140 miles. So it's like, that took a while, and I'm like, good grief, there's just no I'm like, that's not really feasible. Like I'm spending hours in the car, much less, sourcing. So I'm like, I'm going to be a little more strategic about this. So I think coming up with a plan, even if it doesn't work out and then you refine it and change it the next time, having a day, having a set schedule, and then based around what's available around your area, I think that'll pay huge dividends.
Yeah, it's crazy how many miles you can actually put on your car, just not even driving like super far out, but just zigging and zagging and going around. It really does add up. Do you use any apps or anything to track your mileage for counting purposes and whatnot?
Yeah, we use MileIQ, and I love it
I
because
love
it
it.
allows you to
Yeah.
categorize really easily. So great app.
Yeah, I'll link that down below for you folks. Mile IQ. Literally, you could turn it on, you could turn it off. It tracks everything. It's definitely an awesome application to use. Let me ask you a question. Is scaling an eBay business for everybody? Should that be everyone's goal to continue to scale their business? Or does it come to a point where you should be happy with where you are? Is there like a loss in happiness, or do the stress levels start to go up when you start to try to scale too quickly or take your business to the next level when you're not ready? Do you kind of see what I'm getting at?
Yeah, I do, and you're so all over it because eBay is time intensive for sure. And I think about this example. I was thinking about this earlier when you were talking about this a little bit. Suppose you wanted to, let's say you had an income goal of $1,000 a week. Let's say off of eBay, just to make the math simple. And you could sell, there was one item you could list every day and sell it for $200. And it would sell that day. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to list that item on Monday. I'm going to list one on Tuesday, on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and I'm done. And why would you scale? It's like, I'm happy. Like my amount of time is very little. Now that's a kind of a crazy example. You're not usually going to find that.
What is that item, Jason? Can you give us a
Well, that's a bolo that if you subscribe below and I'll get you in.
Prof Sales.
But the analogy is that, where is your happiness level with this? Because for some people, depending on how quickly you move through a product, you might only carry 100 listings or 50 listings, or 200 listings or whatever it is. Other people might be in a different model and want to carry 1,000 or 2,000 or even 5,000. I've got a friend down the road. She has over 5,000 items in her eBay store. That's a big eBay store, and it's clothing. And she generates a lot of revenue from it, but it's a lot of work too. It requires employees and full-time effort. It's like, what are you willing to give up for it? I don't think most people go into business thinking, I want to give up every waking second so I can build a monster business. That sounds great when you're 21 years old. Not so great when you're my age. Not so great when you have a family. Not so great when you have children. There reaches a point there where you're like, I don't want to trade off every second I have and every ounce of energy for potential growth. There's got to be a balance in there somewhere. So I think for a lot of people, the scaling issue becomes sort of a self-defeating mindset if you're not careful, because you think, I got to scale. It's like, no, you have to decide what you really want out of this and then figure out a way to get it an energy that makes sense for your situation with the products that will make sense to hit those objectives. And because I think there's a different way to do it. There's not like just one perfect way. And I think we get so caught up in that in the reselling community. It kind of drives me crazy, to be honest. Sorry, soapbox. I know.
Yeah, no, it's all good, because a lot of us, we kind of have that one-way tunnel vision. But the truth is, when it comes to scaling, there's a lot of other options out there that might even be better than just a traditional thrift store to eBay method. There's wholesale, there's, the Amazon FBA program in general is definitely a lot easier to scale versus an eBay business, because you can utilize the warehouses. In my opinion, of course, that could be argued if you had employees and different things like that. But there's so many opportunities out there. And one of the words that I really liked that you mentioned was trade-off. What are you willing to trade off, right? It's going to be different for everybody. So you've got to kind of ask yourself some questions before, during, and even maybe if you're finished with the business, like, what am I willing to put in for time? What do I want for a lifestyle? What type of stress levels do I want to deal with? And the cool thing about an eBay business is you can kind of design it however you'd like. You could go 5 hours a week, 10 hours a week. You could go 80 hours a week. Let me ask you a question, Jason. If you wanted to work 20 hours per day in your eBay business, right, and destroy your marriage, destroy your life. Yeah, I went there. No, but like in a serious note, if you wanted to work all day long with your eBay business, could you do it if you had to? If someone had a gun to your head, you work all day long in your eBay business every day. You could easily do it. Not easily, but there's enough work to be had.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you're saying, is it a matter of could you figure out things to do?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it becomes like a manufacturing process at that point, bring product in, check it over, photo list, store, sell, ship, rinse, and repeat.
You could keep going.
Yeah. But I would say in that scenario, you don't have a business at that point. You've basically bought yourself a job. And I did not get started in this, and I'm not in it now to have a job. So I think it's about more than just grinding it out. There's some benefit to that in some ways, but eBay will grind you out before you will grind it out. I mean, you cannot, there reaches a point where your time and energy is depleted. You're done. I don't care what your other priorities are. There's 168 hours in a week. So even if you could, work all 168 hours of them, you don't have an infinite capacity there.
Got to sleep.
It would wreck you physically and mentally. But, you look at like an operation like BHFO, which does $40 million a year on eBay. They have 150 employees in a 200,000 square foot warehouse, and they're selling tens of thousands of items a month. And, that didn't happen overnight. They realized that to scale to that point, they had to reinvest money and time and energy back into their business. And I just think if you want to scale, great. But if you think you're just going to list your way there or source your way there, you're not. At some point, you're going to have to step out beyond that and say, I need to decide, what can I delegate? What can I automate? What can I consolidate? What can I eliminate? And did I want to scale? Can I delegate listing to somebody else? Sure you can. Are they going to be as great as you? Probably not. Can I let somebody else take photos? Yep. Can I buy in quantity so I can list on quantity listings? Of course you can. Could you do private label? Could you go the Amazon routers? Of course you can. There's no limit to it. Like Gary Vee says, we're living the entrepreneurial golden age, man. He is so right.
I love it. Delegate, automate, eliminate. What's one thing that somebody who's maybe they're selling on eBay, they've been in the game for maybe a year or two, what's a great thing that they could delegate?
Pictures.
How so?
Because pictures are time consuming, for sure. And even if you're taking the same item, like we've gotten taking photos of jeans down to a science. I'm sure you could do it quicker. You're not going to do it much quicker. So, but we have experimented with, delegating that to, we've had somebody come in part-time and work for a bit, and Karen's son has done some of it. And it's not without its challenges, don't get me wrong. But and I don't know how you view your time, Steve, completely, but there's some kind of value you have on your time. And I feel like my time is worth more than taking picture time at this point, or I want it to be at least. Maybe that's the better way to look at it, that I need to be a little bit higher level. And then when I'm taking pictures, I'm kind of losing money in a strange way.
You're working in the business.
Right. It's not right. It's working me. Right. So I think that's one thing you could do. I think you can teach people to source. I mean, there's clearly ways to do that. I taught Karen how to source, and that multiplied my ability to source by more than 2x, because she does it a different way than me, which means that we get additional benefit into the business because we're approaching it two different ways, and we can cover a store in like no time. So I don't know that there's really anything like in the mundane task of eBay that you couldn't delegate to someone. There's obviously things you can get better at too, more efficient, which makes you faster, which means you save time on the back end, which increases your hourly rate, which increases your productivity. But you're going to have to take a little time to figure that out. And it's good and it's useful for you when you're starting out. You should do all those things so will know them. You need to understand them, but you're going to find out, like, I take photos pretty well, but Karen takes them better than me. So it's like, I'm not the best and we could hire an employee to do it maybe even better than either one of us. Some people are just geared differently in how they do certain things. So those are just some of them.
Yeah, when I started delegating, I started with pictures, and then I moved on to, because I was big into clothing as well. I had my own space, measurements, creating the actual listings and everything. My business took off because then I was able to focus on what you had mentioned previously, which was researching more profitable items,
right,
and going out and sourcing. So before, I was capped off to, let's just say, 50 items a week. By having somebody helping me out, I was able to have them do that and then me jump in as well, or just scale them and go even higher. And it took the stress levels down as well. So delegating, that's huge right there. Automating. What's something that somebody can automate in their eBay business?
I think you can automate your listing process. There's obviously templates you can use on eBay that will speed you up.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I mean, I'm at, like, for jeans, for instance, it's easy for me to put up a jean listing in like 2.5 minutes. If I was doing that from scratch without some of the things in that template that were already there, so that cut my time in half. Just that, just a template, using a template over and over where it fills in things like your payment policy, your shipping policy, your return policy, your category for your item. Like I have one for men's jeans, one for women's jeans. Boom, click on that. It's already pre-filled a bunch of that stuff. You could pre-fill in, do you take a best offer or not? Is it an auction? Is it going to be a buy it now? I mean, all those things can be automated, and you can get, it's kind of easier to do it really complex. It's harder to get it down to only what you need. That's what you want. Like it's always a test, a challenge to get down to the most efficient model and way of doing it you can. That's actually harder than doing it in a complex way, strangely enough.
Another great way to automate is, I don't know, you being a spreadsheet wizard, I don't know, do you use GoDaddy bookkeeping or any softwares for your bookkeeping?
I have in the past. I'm currently using QuickBooks Online, but yes, I've used GoDaddy as well.
But yeah, that's another great way to automate, as inputs will come in, automatically populate and everything. So definitely think about automation as well. Elimination. What's one thing, maybe we'll go back and forth, what's one thing that you eliminated in your eBay business to help you scale?
When I niched down to jeans because at first I wasn't selling jeans. When I sold that Laney t-shirt I mentioned on the show, I was not selling jeans at that point. That kind of came along probably a couple months later. But when I niched down to jeans, I was able to eliminate a lot of my shipping concerns. Because I figured out, a flat rate envelope, especially a padded flat rate. I like the padded, even though it's a little bit more money. But it's it's nice, it can get wet, whereas a cardboard one, whatever. But people argue this one with me all the time, but it's 30 cents cheaper or whatever. I'm like, yeah, but it looks nicer.
Unsubscribe.
Yep. It allowed me to consolidate 99.9% of the jeans that I sell down to that one method. So I didn't have to carry as many poly bags. I didn't have to worry about as much as taping a label on. And by the way, that was another thing. Labels. I started using a peel-off label. Why? Because taping a label on was more expensive and time-consuming. And I got to cut a label off. Like, it just didn't make sense to me. I'm like, there's got to be a better way. This doesn't make sense, And there are better ways. So little tricks like that. It's like not any one is going to save all this time and but together, man, they make a huge difference.
One of the things that I was struggling with, my first 6 months in business, this was, 4 or 5 years ago, is I would literally buy anything with a market and that had a profit attached to it. So I was buying Brooks Brothers shirts, that were only making me $4, $3, $5 profit. And by eliminating buying everything and focusing on only a minimum profit. So for example, back then my minimum profits, I wanted to make at least $10. At least that was my goal. You know what I mean? So have yourself a minimum profit of something that you want to buy, because then you'll save space, so you're not buying everything. You'll save money. Plus, you won't have to list and sell as many things to make a profit. So that's definitely one thing that I focused on in terms of elimination. So that was it. Delegation, automation, elimination. A couple more questions for you. If you go back in time, what's one thing that you would do differently? Maybe one mistake that you made in the past in terms of scaling your business that maybe we've already touched on it, but something that you wish, you know what, if I would have known better, I would have changed that?
I would have definitely started off with a niche right away. I definitely was one of those who was buying all the things that, and I'm like, man, this is exhausting to research.
It's kind of part of the process, though, to learn.
Yeah, it is. And I just wish, though, that, like, I had niched, I thought about the clothing aspect of it, that angle, but I hadn't really narrowed that down enough. And I just bought a lot of things that later it's like, man, I really don't like selling this. Like, it's just not like, I don't like listing, I don't like photographing, I don't like measuring it, whatever it was with it. So the niching part for me was a huge change. And I'm like, man, now I know how to store it. I know how to put in inventory. I know how to photograph it. I know how to list it. I know, like, I can walk in a store now and source jeans. Like, I do find occasionally ones I've never seen, but 9 times out of 10, even then I can look at it and say whether or not that's going to be worth even looking up or not. So tremendous time savings.
What are your thoughts on, this is the last question until we get into like some of the closing things, but what are your thoughts in terms of like sustainability and long-term growth of eBay over these next couple of years, 5 years, especially with Amazon taking off, different platforms coming into the market? Do you think eBay is going to continue to be a lucrative way to make money online over these next couple of years?
The popular answer would be, a lot of people would say it's not going to be as profitable. And I think there's always a little bit of a Chicken Little syndrome out there with the sky is falling. But I'd also say, too, that people are bargain hunters, and they always look for things that are one-offs. And eBay has kind of become that niche for people where you can sell things that are vintage, things that are collectible. It's always had that reputation. And I think as far as, like, in my particular areas, pre-owned clothing and things like that, it's a time-consuming process to sell those things, to buy those things, and, there's so much of it out there. There's so much clothing that's produced. It's hard for me to imagine that the stores are ever going to be able to adequately price items given the secondary market, that they're always going to be able to dispose. There's always going to be a place for the reseller to come in and find value. And if there's a place for us to come in and find value, there's going to be a platform for us to sell it on because it's just too much money to be made. And so I think, unless eBay seriously missteps and tries to, quote unquote, let's say, get involved in the inventory storage business and compete head to head with Amazon, which, they're a long way behind now at this point. I think they'll be around and I think they'll be viable. I mean, it's hard for me. I know a lot of new items are sold on eBay. It's the majority are new items, but it's still hard for me to think that they would go completely to that model because a lot of those manufacturers are going to go, to some of these other platforms as well. So it would be very diluted. I mean, I think eBay would be foolish to try to be Amazon or to try to be
exactly
Etsy. I just think it. Again, I mean, I want to be optimistic about it and say that unless they just go off in some weird direction, there's going to be a market there for you. And unless you're trying to get into some super crowded niche or area that's capital intensive, I mean, you're going to have opportunities as a reseller on eBay, I would think, over the next 2, 3, 5, 10, even 10 years down the road.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of finding that undervalued inventory because I don't think the traffic's going to go anywhere. I was just looking at eBay's website traffic. Over the last 6 months, they're bringing in anywhere between 1 to 1.5 billion views per month. 1 to 1.5 billion views.
We need to get our YouTube channel like that, Steve.
I'll tell you right now, man, if I get it up that high, I ain't going anywhere over the next couple of years. Last thing I want to mention was I heard that you were releasing a new product. It was an Excel Google Sheet. I want you to explain to people who are watching right now what exactly that is, how that could benefit them.
Yeah, so last year, I guess it was probably the summer, I was sharing a lot of results with my business, and I was doing a lot of screen shares with the spreadsheet that I built out using Excel specifically for eBay and Amazon and just really in e-commerce in general, but that was who I was mainly focused on. And I got so many people asking me about it, like, hey, can I get a copy and do this? But then I realized, like, what I created I understood really clearly, but to give it to you and say, hey, here, go use it, you would be like, I'm not really sure I know exactly what's going on with this. So I created a version that took, the guts of what I was doing and started providing that to people, and it went really well. And so this year we took what we learned last year and expanded that out to a much bigger, much more robust platform. It's going to be available in Excel. It's also going to be available on Google Sheets. There's a Google Sheets version, which is pretty cool because Google Sheets doesn't require you to buy anything to get a Google account. And so we've started pre-ordering for this spreadsheet, but it allows you to track your inventory and allows you to track your sales. It allows you to put in your expenses of your business. It allows you to generate a profit and loss statement at the very beginning, and allows you to sell on up to 10 different platforms, and it also allows you to track all this over 10 years. So it's really got, you literally could buy it and be good for a decade. And I know things will change here, and we'll make updates and so on if people need, specific, something drastically changed. But I know that for me, when I had mine and I took it to my CPA earlier this year, back at the beginning of the year, he was like, man, this covers a lot of the stuff that I needed for you to do your taxes and so on, which is what I was aiming for, because I knew that day, I knew that's a big deal. It's like, you've got to have some records, and if you don't, the IRS and your state can be like, we're not buying this. So it was cool for that too. And if you haven't, and I just tell people, if you're not kind of keeping track of your business and if you're making profit or not, or where your inventory is at, you need to start. I don't care if it's my product or not, but you need to start, because at some point, some things are going to hit the proverbial fan, and you're going to wish that you had. So that's what we did with it.
Awesome. So I will link that up down below for anybody who wants to check that out. By the time this video does air, I'm sure the pre-order will be over, but we'll talk behind the scenes. Maybe we can hook you up with a deal or something special for people who watch this. But that's really important, because a lot of folks, they get into business, and this happened to me as well. It's a learning curve. You get in and your main focus is make money, make money, make money. And then as a self-employed person, you don't realize that you actually have to pay taxes, and your CPA, your accountant, is going to want information such as cost of goods sold, how much inventory you didn't sell, a whole bunch of various numbers that, when that first happened to me, I was like, And at the time, my father was my CPA, and I can just tell you right now, it wasn't fun.
Right.
Working with him at that point, and I don't blame him. So definitely do whatever you can to get those things in line. But Jason, it's been a lot of fun. For anybody who's enjoyed this, you want to follow Jason, where can people follow you? Obviously, YouTube, Prof Sales. Anywhere else people can check out and hang out with you?
Yeah, I've actually got a Facebook page where I engage with a lot of people who watch the channel or come into our Facebook group, so on. But it's facebook.com/Prof Sales page. All one word, Prof Sales page. And people send me messages there all the time. I see them every day. I try my best to respond to all of them. And, it tracks how quickly you respond to them. It tells you on Facebook, this person responds within this many hours on average. And I try to do that the best I can, and hopefully I don't miss anybody. But it's kind of cool to hear from people. But that's a great way to just get in touch with me, as well as YouTube as well. So.
Awesome. Well, it was a pleasure, Jason. Prof Sales coming on. Again, for the folks who enjoyed this, you can see all the links to Jason's page and his YouTube channel down below. For the people listening on iTunes, if you did enjoy this, please leave an honest feedback. It would definitely help to get the podcast out there. Of course, on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe for more videos. And thanks, Jason, again for coming on and dropping a bunch of gold nuggets, and definitely appreciate having you here, man.
Thanks, man. Always a pleasure, Steve. Thanks for having me.
All right. See you in the next one.